It's hard to believe that more than 5,000 people once worked here. And now these hundreds of derelict acres are the habitat of the job creation men and the industrial development officers. It's 3.5 years since the Consett steelworks closed. Now most of the sheds that once dominated the valley skylines have been demolished. Tonight, Coast to Coast returns to Consett to see if the loss of this town's major employer has been a disaster beyond recovery, or if the town has managed to start to build a bright new future on high-tech and new industries. Of course, much has already been written and said about this area. To local people, it's often seemed that outsiders simply wanted to exploit the suffering. Well, we hope to have avoided the obvious pitfall of knowing too little and saying too much by commissioning 2 academic researchers to find answers to these questions. First of all, unemployment. How bad is it now, and will it improve? Then the policy of reindustrialization. Does it work? Is it the key to a prosperous future? And finally, manpower services schemes. What effect are they having on the town? In a nutshell, what does the future hold for Consett? For many families here, the answer is brutally clear.
It was just a sense of unbelief that we just couldn't credit that the works would ever finish. I mean, it was there permanently. It was Consett.
This government, they just haven't played fair by them at all. You know, they really do owe them work of some kind. And this is when I get really angry, when I know that she doesn't intend bringing any work up here, because of course it is Labour controlled and she's not interested in the Labour vote, you know. So I really wish that all these men like Neil Kinnock, and they know who they are, these, you know, they really ought to get down to the business of finding some kind of work to replace Consett works, because a workforce like that shouldn't go to waste. You know, there's too much talent wasted, and really, like I say, I just get very angry.
I'm trying to possibly get them to imagine London without the Houses of Parliament and the bus service and the underground and everything. The whole heart ripped out of the place. That was just what they did at Consett. They just tore the heart out of it. We've tried to move several times, but at our age, you can't get a mortgage. We've tried for council houses elsewhere, and you have a 5-year waiting list, and you have to have a job in the area before you can even apply for a council house. When the works closed, I was 52. Well, I was too young for a pension by 3 years. And that was a thing, I mean, we'd paid into from 1960 since it first started, but that all went by the board, finishing at 52. And the jobs I've been in since, well, they're just not big enough firms to carry a pension scheme. So we'll just have to depend on the government pension when we do come to retirement age.
The Consett people really were a very intelligent, talented, and there's a great workforce here, and really it is their responsibility to get down to it and do something really to take the place of Consett Works, because these are men, about 4,000 of them, and you can't find a place for 4,000 men in a community that's already looking for jobs, you know. And if you're depending on this government, it's going to be left to go slide, you know. In fact, I think now she's already bringing all this atomic waste and whatnot up to the north. She has already insulted them left, right and centre, and now she's going to finish them off by dumping all the nuclear waste, whereas she must look on us as waste.
However tempting it may be for local people simply to blame Maggie, there's no easy solution to Consett's problems. There remains, our researchers say, something akin to bereavement. Almost everyone in Consett still marks time in relation to the closure. That's hardly surprising, given the massive loss of jobs in Derwentsside and the highest unemployment rate in the north. Our report looked at the losses in manufacturing. The year of the steelworks closure, 1980, saw, as you'd expect, a huge loss of jobs. A year later, half of Derwentside's manufacturing employment had gone. In terms of total employment prospects in the area, it meant that between 1978 and 1981, a third of all jobs vanished. It was a cruel body blow for people who'd spent 5 generations dominated by the production sheds and the steaming slag heaps. Consett, after all, was the company town, and the company had meant work. In 1848, when iron production started, it was the Derwent Iron Company. A quarter of a century later, it had evolved into the Consett Iron Company, a name that dominated the town for more than 100 years. For the men, it meant employment. For their sons, apprenticeships. The company owned nearly 3,000 houses, gave work to nearly 6,000 people. It built an infirmary and founded schools. Physically and mentally, it dominated the town. The price paid for that employment and prosperity was simple. You could see it every day. The dust, a cloud of red iron dust, enveloping the community and its working families. The workers could be forgiven for thinking the plant invincible. It survived the 30s depression reasonably well, in any case far better than the surrounding pits. And then after the war began a substantial modernization program. By 1957, £27 million had been spent, including 3 new blast furnaces that trebled production capacity. As late as 1960, the plate mill was built, and then 3 years later came the oxygen plant. The cost, a further £23 million. With so much investment, the company remained a successful steel producer. In fact, it was the first UK producer to adopt the basic oxygen steelmaking process. Our report points out that the company managed to overcome at least some of its problems of isolation from both raw materials and markets. The reputation of the company was strong, and the town, likewise, proud of its achievements. So what went wrong for Consett? As our study makes clear, it was the 1967 nationalisation of the industry that, in a sense, marked the end for Consett. The newly formed British Steel Corporation was committed to large integrated coastal plants. Now the town had to learn a hard new language, a language of slim downs and rationalisation, a language of overcapacity. Initially, it meant a workforce reduced from 5,000 to 3,500. Finally, an announcement from BSC that it wanted the whole place closed by 1980. In the absence of an obvious culprit, it seemed right to blame the government. In as tightly knit a community as Consett, the anti-closure campaign received much support. Started by the steel unions, it drew on help from other trade unionists, from fellow workers and the community as a whole. But some, at least, already had a look of defeat. Then, on July the 9th, 1980, 600 workers thought it worth the effort to take their fight further south. The Consett Crusade, complete with the steelworks brass band, had brought the message to the capital. But despite this, despite widespread media coverage, despite claims that the plant was profitable, our report shows that Consett's struggle was ultimately an isolated one. Whatever the claims of profitability, BSC had a bigger problem, that of cutting capacity in the industry as a whole. Finally, on September 12th, 1980, the last steel was cast. At a stroke, it marked the end of 140 years of steelmaking in Consett. All that remained was the demolition, an ambitious scheme costing £10 million that almost seemed to be trying to erase the memory of the works. For many former BSC employees, it was to be their last job, as well as their saddest.
They wanted to shut that plant, and that was it. They're not worried about the people on the door.
4 years ago, Ellen Wilkinson, writing her study of Jarrow, the town that was murdered, put it quite simply. Above all else, the unemployed man wants a job. He wants his independence. He wants the right to earn his own living. A man without a job is no subject for experiments in social organisation. The men do not want charity, they want a job.